So for today's video, Bella and I are going to do something that we've been meaning to do for ages, and that's a buyer's guide on a W123. And look, it's obviously a personal thing, obviously from buying cars for the last 30 years, Bella focusing on W123s through her business, Bell Benz, for a number of years as well. And so we're going to go through what we look at when we're buying a 123. And obviously all of these things are price dependent. So you can't apply the same standards to a car advertised for 30,000 Rand as you can for a car advertised for 180,000 Rand. Obviously two different things. And yeah, enjoy the video. And as I said, Bella owns a business called Bell Benz. She deals in older Mercedeses. And I own Old Burka. We do spares for older Mercs, 75 to 95 models. Yeah, I'd like to add before we start off with the first segment of the video is that there'll be different portions. Obviously Bella goes through, she speaks about it. I'll give you my opinion, then I'll have a look at a diesel and a petrol engine and what to look out for there. So if you want to skip ahead, that to be later in the video, and we talk about the mechanical bits to have a look at as well. Anyway, enjoy. Here with Bella, and as you can see, this is her personal 240D. If you have a look through the videos, she's recently she's had a 240D since she got a license 7-8 years ago. 2018, yeah, and she recently moved her other one, which was very badly rusted, into this body, and this is her daily that she uses. Anyway, enough of that. Bella, let's go through what you look at when you looking at buying a W123. What's the first thing you do?
I first ask if they've got papers.
Obviously, yeah,
and the license also. I don't want it to be too far behind, because if it's a year or two, it starts adding up quickly.
Yeah, I mean, that's the first thing.
Yeah.
Obviously, that's a given in any car you buy.
Yeah.
Get that paperwork in order. The guy saying that, it's in my brother's name, or I'm selling it for a friend, walk away.
Yeah.
That's what we do.
And
Okay.
if the license is like 8 years behind, it's probably also not worth it.
It's probably not, yeah, unless
Yeah.
it's a very special car like a CE or something like that.
Maybe then.
Yeah, maybe then. Okay.
And then I don't like buying hectically rusted ones.
Okay.
So I don't mind a little bit of rust here or there, but I don't want like rotten floors, or thereby the jacking points must be intact.
And we've done a rust tutorial a number of years ago, and I'll share a link at the end of this video. We have done a rust tutorial on 123s where we go through all of the various places.
Yeah.
But that's not what this, we're not going to focus too much on the rust portion of it now, more on what we look at when we're buying.
Yeah, so I won't buy one that's very badly rusted, and it needs to run properly, or if it doesn't, it mustn't be something very wrong with it.
Okay. So what do you determine there? What's the defining thing? You get in
and it starts and drives, but if there's like, I don't know, sometimes they all have their little things, like the 230Es, sometimes when you want to start them they go slow and then start, but that's easy to sort out. Suspension, I don't worry about too much. If it's got some knocks here and there, it's okay.
Because the parts are all freely available.
Yeah, you can find it.
Okay, and new. I mean, you don't need to buy
you get it new.
second-hand. Okay, you spoke about mechanically things that you're wary of. What would be a definite thing for you to walk away from mechanically?
If it hasn't run in many years, I don't want it. Or if it doesn't run at all, I don't want it.
Yeah.
It has to run.
For spares.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If it runs, then I like it, yeah.
Okay. And if it runs with a bit of a misfire or something like that, there's something you
Yeah,
can
that's
sort out.
okay.
But then again, it comes down to price.
Yeah.
It's a very different standard. So whatever you're deciding on, if you're looking at a car and it's advertised near the top of 123's value, well, a lot of things need to be very different to what we're talking about now. It needs to be perfect, basically. But just going back to what you were saying.
Also, I like the interior to be nice.
Okay.
I don't mind if there's a tear here or there on a seat,
Okay.
because we can fix that. But if the interior is totally tired and terrible, I'm not really interested.
Yeah, once again, it's something I would buy for spares.
Yeah.
And there again, don't be put off by tears here. Me and Old Merca, we actually sell backrest, or we sell fabric. So out of the cars we strip, it's very often I can help with the replacement panel here that would match your interior. So don't be too concerned about that. Another very common thing is that these seat bases collapse over here. And
Most of them have.
Most of them have, yeah. There again, in old Merc, our supply seat base, they're not particularly expensive, which you can then move your existing cover onto, and it's a relatively easy job. So we do that as well. Dashboards we do as well.
Yeah.
Okay,
that's not
so
too-
don't be too put off by cracks. On dashes, it's a relatively easy fix. Well, we remanufacture dashes, and yeah, that can be done, of course.
Yeah.
But getting back to you, Billa.
Yeah, and I think if a car's over 100, 120, like at the higher range, things do need to be working.
Yeah.
Like, I'd say central locking, aircon, cruise control, you'd want that to be working if the car has it at that price.
Becker
And-
radio as well,
yeah,
for sure.
and it must have nice door pockets.
Yeah,
No rust, I'd say, for a car that price.
absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, but for 50 grand or so, you can get a decent running 123 that needs small amounts of work.
The cosmetic work.
Yeah,
So you can expect a bit of rust or dents or that sort of stuff.
yeah.
Yeah,
And 30 grand, 20 grand, it's a bit harder to find something decent.
yeah. It's sort of the price range I'm almost buying cars for stripping now.
Yeah,
You know, so but yeah, it really comes down to price. But I think just going through the things that Bella checks when you go to a 123, okay, let's do it. Okay, you're
Okay.
coming to buy this 123. You haven't seen it before.
yeah.
What's the first thing you do?
I look around for rust.
Okay,
I take a look inside at the interior.
okay,
I check if there's a service history. But
Okay.
if there isn't, it's not a problem.
Okay.
Most of them don't have.
yeah.
As long as it's been looked after, it doesn't really matter.
I mean that shows up with the test drive.
Yeah.
Okay,
Then I like to take it for a drive, see how it pulls,
okay,
see if there's any weird noises or knocks.
okay.
Yeah, just like a walk around the car.
Engine bay. What do you look at in there?
I look at the bonnet hinges mainly,
Okay,
and I just look if the engine looks clean or
okay.
how it looks in general over there.
Always a good idea to check the oil,
Yeah.
condition of the oil, to check the condition of the ATF as well if automatic.
And the
You know,
coolant.
just pull it out and make sure it's red and isn't burnt.
Yeah,
Another thing to do is just check the beadings. You know, that's there again. You know, it's price dependent. But you know, as soon as you start going to the upper half of the value of 123s, make sure this isn't dented here. These are getting very hard to find, particularly these back ones without a dent over there. So that's something that needs to be right, like it is on this car here. Check for rust on the chrome of the bumpers. They tend to rust behind the rubber. That's another issue there.
and rust by the back window,
Yeah, obviously,
like my
yeah.
one has, but
Yeah, so you
that's
can-
easy to sort out.
Absolutely. Yeah, the glass needs to come out. It needs to come out.
Yeah,
A decent body shop can do it. Not particularly expensive either. But
No.
they need to cut and put in a new piece. Stay away from the guys that are going to fiberglass and body putty. They're a dime a dozen. Stay away from them. And then around the front, what's important to you here?
I like the lights and the grille to be nice. I don't mind if a headlight has a chip or something because you can find the lenses still.
Okay.
But the grills are a bit harder to find. And I look at that bottom piece down there. It must also be straight.
Very much.
Yeah.
Like it is on yours.
It's not nice if it's
Because
dented
very
in.
few body shops can actually get that piece right. So they'll tend to make it straight and it stands out straight away. It's got a slight curve as it is here, as you can see on Bella's car. And that's how it's supposed to look. So it's also one of the very first things I look at.
Yeah,
Because that just speaks to bad roads and hitting curbs and stuff like that if that is bent. Those grills being intact there as well is quite important. And then going around the side.
yeah. It's nice if it has mud flaps,
I
all
was
the
gonna say,
hubcaps.
I was going to say. So
a
I mean,
nice extra.
for you, when you go out and buy, and you're looking at a 40,000 rand car instead of what would make a 40,000 rand car
yeah.
a 60,000 rand car for you?
It needs to look nice.
Needs to look nice.
Yeah,
Things like mud flaps,
yeah.
for example.
And it must have the hubcaps then.
Yeah.
At
Okay.
40,000, maybe at 20,000, the hubcaps don't have to be there, but
Okay.
at 40 and up, I think they should be there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Things that add value.
yeah.
Mud flaps.
Mud flaps, the rubber mats inside.
Absolutely. The overlays.
Yeah.
You've got overlays inside here as well.
I've got.
I'll open up here and you can have a look. That would be, okay, Bella's got a rubber mat over that, but that would be these that she's talking about, these rubber overlays. And I mean, that's a very important thing in these cars. And certainly the left mirror.
Yeah, left
As well.
mirror as well. And yeah, you can just see on the more expensive ones, just check like these trimmings if they're nice. These ones, these often get torn.
Yeah.
Check
This
the
as well.
steering.
This as well. For me,
Yeah.
on a more expensive one, on a cheaper one, it's acceptable. These things warp in the sun terribly, very easy. They're quite a
Yeah.
flimsy plastic, and they warp quite easily. So, if you're looking at a more expensive one, this needs to be right. Absolutely. And it needs to look like that. You can see if things have been opened. And, look at the bottom of the door.
Yeah, there's
Crucial,
sometimes
crucial,
rust
crucial.
there.
Most times,
Yeah.
there's rust over there. So one of the first things to look at to determine value is ensure there's no rust over there. This one of yours is actually very, very clean.
It is. It was kept in a garage.
Yeah. The other thing you can do is you can check the steering. These steerings, if you look at the grain over there, they tend to wear out. I hope your steering unlocks.
Yeah.
Anyway, they tend to wear out and they smooth out. So for it to look like this car's done how many
The
Ks?
car itself has done 200,000
Okay,
Ks.
so that's more or less what it's going to look like at
Yeah.
200,000 Ks. If you see a very low mileage example with that very smooth, well then there's something wrong there.
And the indicator stalk should have the pictures on if
Absolutely.
it's low mileage.
Yeah. So like that as opposed to worn off.
Yeah.
Very often those pictures do disappear. And you can see it very nicely on this car. It looks really nice still. That would point to a well looked after garaged example. And certainly on more valuable cars, that's something I would most definitely check. Most definitely.
If it's a manual, the gear knob
Yeah, that's the other
also,
thing.
and that gear boot is
Yeah.
often gone.
So you can see the numbers are still, or the gear selecting numbers are still there, the gear boots. The gear boots are available from Mercedes still.
Yeah.
But we're speaking about, what determines the value for us when we're looking at it.
Yeah. Then you can also check in the boot the spare tire and jack, and if it has tools.
That's another
Mine
thing
doesn't
that would
have, it
certainly-
just has the jack and the
That
tire.
looks very nice.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, if I looked at that, I'd think, yeah, no, okay, car's
Yeah.
been well looked after. Very
Some
often
have
it's-
like a little tool pack.
Yeah. And anything else you'd like to add?
I don't think so.
Okay, for you,
That's about it,
walking
yeah.
away, papers.
Papers, and if there's, I don't know. I just know if it's a good car or not. You can kind of see if it's been looked after or if it's been messed with.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You can see if it's been painted. So look. The first thing to do is look at the end of these things. These, for me, this is the defining one. Most body shops do not take these off. They mask this up when they're painting. This as well, this top rail, because it's a bugger to put back on when you take it off. So a lot of shops don't do it.
Yeah.
So check for overspray here and see masking here. And I mean, this I don't see it on actually. This car's really nice. So these are the first things I would look at there. And also lift up the rubber. So you can lift up the rubber here. You can see if there's a ridge. That means that it's been resprayed. It's fine if it's been resprayed, but if it's been resprayed and the windscreen hasn't been taken out, that's just a lousy job.
Yeah.
So be very careful of that sort of thing. So look for originality in terms of fitment as well. We'll carry on. I'll take over and you can do a bit of filming. I'll go through what I look at.
Okay.
Okay, so when it comes to me, if I'm buying a 123, obviously, as I say, it's all dependent on price. Different standards for different prices. But assuming this car was advertised at 100,000 Rand, I would come here. The first thing I'd do is I'd check for the overspray. As I was saying around here, I'd make sure that the bodywork's nice and straight. So I'd stand here and have a look down the side. Make sure that those lines are nice and clear. You can see if it's been panel beated before. If the doors have been taken off, I'd certainly check that. I'd check for the rust, as Bella was saying, and as per our rust tutorial. I'd check the condition of the beadings. At 100,000 Rand, they should be really nice. I'd check the interior like Bella as well. I'd sit on the driver's seat and the front passenger seat because the springs do have a tendency to collapse. So you want to make sure that it's still nice and firm and nice and steady. Check for cracks on the dash. These over here, the wear on the steering wheel, the armrest. That's the other big thing. very often the armrest isn't in that position. It's actually collapsed a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, and these armrests, well, it's not that big a deal, but these armrests are getting hard to find in decent condition. And when you do find one, then the fabric's a different color and it's going to stand out. So if it's not, so that's the up position. If you push the button on the side, it goes down to there. That's the correct position for it to be in. If it's lower down, the mechanism's actually broken, or the sponge in the armrest is separated from the actual mechanism. So it's an issue, and certainly at 100,000 rand, I wouldn't be happy with that. The other thing to check are these clasps. They're getting hard to find, and they're quite a common problem that they deteriorate. This over here, this what's this called, a windlass, huh?
I think so.
It looks really good on Bella's car. They can be cleaned up quite successfully with something like Clean Green, but that's something I would check as well. You know, it determines the value of the car. Walk around, that's the other thing. That's how the door should close. Okay, I'm pushing it quite hard there,
Yeah.
but you know, it latches. So as soon as it doesn't latch, let me push a bit softer. There we go. As soon as it doesn't latch like that, it means that the little rubber is broken underneath here. Now, there are guys that sell these replacement latches, and I think you might have actually replaced them on this car. Or no, not on this car, on your previous one. But the thing to check here is this little rubber underneath here. Have a look at this little rubber. That little rubber needs to be there, and this little piece needs to be there for this door to close like that. If it doesn't, and you find you battling to close the door, that's the issue over there. W123 right front regulators are becoming very, very hard to find. A common problem with them is that the tray at the bottom of the window starts to rust, and the regulator breaks. Okay, so the other very important thing, regardless of the price, because it's a roadworthy relevant issue, your car's not going to pass roadworthy if the windows don't work. Ensure that they wind up electrically or manually, makes no difference. Ensure that they're working. That particular part, I get 2 or 3 inquiries a week for, and we don't have any in stock. I think I might have 1 in stock at the moment.
We got one.
One, yeah. We get a lot of inquiries on right front regulators on 123. So check that, and then check the others. The others are a bit easier to find, but the right front ones are a problem. Check the fitment of this as well. This speaks to
That one's
this.
been off.
Yeah, okay, this has been off, but check this one's quite good still. I see it needs to latch there. Let me just open up the back one here. That hasn't been off. So just put your fingers against the glass and try and put a bit of pressure here. This thing shouldn't move at all. It's not easy to put it on properly, so a lot of people don't. And what I like about that, it means it hasn't been fiddled with. You know, it's as it was, as it's supposed to be. As you said, the rubber mats. Check the radio working. Check the central locking. The vacuum central locking. It's a huge issue if that thing doesn't work. The best thing to do if it doesn't work is just go and get an aftermarket system put in, electrical system. But to try and get that resolved, and there again I'm speaking about price points. Okay, so if somebody wants central locking and they're selling a car for 140,000, 150,000 and the central locking doesn't work, that car's supposed to have central locking, well, and it hasn't got an aftermarket system, not an easy thing to resolve the original ones. There's hundreds of little junctions all over the place, and if one of those little vacuum things or an actuator is leaking, the locking's not going to work. So that's another thing I check. Check the function of the air conditioning. Make sure that, just turn the steering as well, left to right. Make sure that there's not a lot of play around the center point. Okay, I locked it now, but let me just unlock that. Okay, so you know, there's a bit of play by design. Okay. An inch, I would guess, is all right, or acceptable for me. More than that, look, it can be adjusted out, but it speaks about age and lack of maintenance. So, yeah, that's another thing I'll check. Sound system, as I said. Center unit in the tank. Make sure that the fuel tank's working, that the reserve light isn't on. When the tank's saying it's quarter or half, it points towards a faulty center unit in the tank. When you're driving, make sure there's no noise from the diff. The diffs aren't particularly expensive. We sell them for under 3,000 Rand with a guarantee, but that and the side shafts are a big problem on them, because the side shafts, unlike most other cars, City Golf, Mazda, whatever, you can replace just the boot on the side shaft. With these you can, but you need a very, very special tool that very few mechanics have. So generally the thing that you need to do there is replace the whole side shaft with inner and outer CVs. And those are not cheap. They go for around 2,000 Rand, a guaranteed second-hand one, and they're a bit scarce. We sell a lot of them, and we've always got sort of a waiting list going on them. So yeah, that's another thing to check, and that problem will manifest itself when you're pulling away. There'll be a bit of a shudder, there might be a knocking, there'll be a vibration. You've had cars where you've driven with that. What symptoms have you had on
For
them?
me, it's mainly on the open road. After driving about 100 k's or so, it starts making a flapping noise at the back.
That's it.
Then you stop, rest, and it goes away for another little bit, then it comes back.
And the other thing, of course, is it leaks. So if that boot is gone and it starts leaking and you start losing oil there. So it's another thing to check. It's very easy. Get underneath. You can lie down here, just check those side shafts to make sure that the boots are intact on both sides, both the inner and the outer one, and that there's not any oil or anything on the diff. That's one thing I do check as well. Check tail lights, check these bottom things here. If you have a look at the rust tutorial, there are places that rust here as well. For me, mud flaps are very important. Left mirror. Okay, here in South Africa, only standardized from 1984 on. Prior to that, it wasn't there. And then when it comes to the engine, and we'll carry on with that now. But when it comes to the engine, there's a few things I always check there as well. But we'll carry on with that in another. Okay, so here we're sitting inside Bella's 240D, and I just wanted to show you where the oil pressure should be in these cars. So when the car is warm, it has an 87-degree thermostat, so this one's almost warm. It'll go up a little bit more. But then it should be over here at idle. So between 1 and 2 is sort of acceptable. Bella's is actually quite good, but the idle speed might be a bit high, and that's why it's over there. But the biggest thing is, as soon as you touch the accelerator, that needs to go up. Okay, and you want it to peg at 3. If you're accelerating and it's not at 3, there's an issue. It could be something as minor as a blocked oil filter, but could also be a bad oil pump. It could be a worn engine. It could be a variety of things. So basically the procedure is get in the car, start it. If it's ice cold, it must go up to 3 immediately. And then as it warms up at idle, it can drop down. As I say, Bella's idle speed's a bit higher. That's why it's over there. It should be between 1 and 2 at warm idle. But as soon as you touch the accelerator, boom, up to 3. Also, if you're driving and it gets anywhere near 100, it's too hot. There's an issue there. So if it goes up momentarily, and it goes to 100, and there's a valid reason for it. So in other words, it's very, very hot outside, or the aircon's on, or you're going up a steep hill, yeah, it's absolutely fine, as long as it comes down again. But in normal driving, it shouldn't. It's got an 87 degrees thermostat. If the radiator and stuff is working well, then you're golden. That's where it should be. What I was speaking about in my section, so you can see Bella's actually still got a quarter of a tank, but that reserve light's on. It points towards her having to replace her sender unit in the tank. I'm going to leave it running, because the other thing that I do when it comes to diesel specifically, a very good test is this. Open that up. And that speaks to compression. So now it's loose. And let it, as long as it's dancing like that on it, absolutely fine. Just tighten that up again. If it doesn't do that, and the thing shoots off, yeah, there's a lot of blow by in the motor, that's potentially an issue. Well, it's not potentially, it is an issue. So certainly on the diesels, that's what I check. I'll speak to you about what I check on the petrols now. Let me turn this off because it's making a lot of noise. Diesels. As far as the petrols go, the most common is obviously the M102. This one's here, it's getting some engine mountings put in, and the air filter housing is off. But the M102 is either the 200 or the 230E. And a very common issue with these is that the oil above the, I don't know if we've got it here, we can have a look on this. This isn't the M102 engine, but it's the same principle. So if you have a look here, here's the camshaft. And this pipe on top is an oil feed pipe. So this sprays oil onto the lobes of the camshaft as the engine is running. And what happens on the M102, it's got a thinner pipe, a much thinner. This is M115, so the old 234 motor. But the M102 has got a much thinner oil feed pipe, and that gets clogged up. So if that car hasn't been serviced regularly with oil changes and stuff, that little line on top, that oil feed pipe, clogs up and doesn't give oil to one or two or all of the lobes on the camshaft, and that starts wearing off. And I'll see if we haven't got one here that is worn already. But what happens is, normally the lobe would look like that. You can see over there, this one's absolutely fine. But what happens is it gets squared off, and you actually get like a little step there and then down. And what happens then is that the motor starts ticking quite badly. So it sounds like tappets, but it's not tappets. It's actually the worn camshaft. So if you start up the engine and M102, and it's tick, 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 it's a very good indication that if that's the issue, well, the camshaft needs to be replaced. And very often, because the camshaft has been worn, you need to replace the little tappet blocks as well. I'm just looking if I've got anything lying around here. But we can go and have a look on the shelf. But they're basically the little blocks that the camshaft runs against and opens and closes the valves. And because of the lack of lubrication there, because that pipe is blocked up, here we go, we've got a bunch of them here. So you can see we've got some lousy ones, and I can actually show you what happens here. Let's have a look through. So basically what happens is the camshaft runs on top of this and pushes against here, and you can have a look here. I don't know if you can see, but how badly scratched that is over there. Now the camshaft's running here because that lobe is worn out. It's busy charring this all the time, and that's what causes that clicking. And obviously it affects the efficiency of the engine, not opening and closing the valves as it should, and that's maybe the biggest issue with them. So that's one thing. If you hear ticking when the car's running, that's probably the issue. And that's enough for me to affect the price quite badly because you don't know the extent of the damage, so be very cautious. More expensive cars, it's fine. In a 20, 30 grand car, it's running, it's fine, but in the more expensive cars, walk away if you hear that. The other thing is just the responsiveness. So the idle, particularly with the K-Jet, the fuel injected, so the 230E or the 280E, the idle shouldn't be too high. It should rev nice and cleanly. Should try and do a warm start, so take it for a test drive, turn it off, start it up again, see how easily it starts. Those are all things I would check there. The carbs are very bulletproof. The Stromberg 175 CDs, I love them on a 200. Just make sure that open up the little, if you are looking at a 200, open up the little dashboard on top. There's a little yellow or red cap there. Open it up and check that there's ATF inside there. That's the one thing to do on that. Inspect the radiator as well, make sure that it isn't. In fact, we can go to the radiator and I'll show you the sort of things to look out for there. We don't have any decent radiators in stock. We just keep the bad ones, just send to scrap metal because obviously it's copper. But basically what you're looking at here on a radiator, I don't know if you can get it here, Bills. This one is not too bad. Do we have a bad 123 one? Let's have, here we go. Okay, here we go. So you can have a look at that. Look how this just crumbles here. See that? Okay. So look for that. In appearance, it's quite easy to see. If you look at these over here, look at the one on Bella's car, you look at this one, it's actually quite nice. It doesn't have that issue. It looks like a radiator should. So this is what you want to be seeing. You don't want to be seeing that, these little fins are broken. Look at Bella's as well. Oh, yours, to be fair, yours is actually...
But it cools fine.
It cools, yeah. But, when you're buying the car, it's something I would certainly look at. Open up the oil. So pull this out. Make sure that the oil level's right. Okay, this one is warm, so the oil still needs to go back down. If we look on this one here, it should be at the correct place already. So I'll pull that out, yep. Make sure that the oil level's right. Make sure that it's not too dirty.
Or milky.
Because that would be a blown cylinder head. Okay, so just feel it. Make sure it's not too dirty and not too old. If it's a automatic, and neither of these are, but we've got another one over here that we're busy stripping. And I'll show you what I do with the gearbox there. That's a very important thing. Pull the gearbox dipstick. It's over here. Pull the gearbox dipstick out, and let's go there into the light on this particular car. What I like doing here is I want to see that that's red. you know, not brown. And yeah, it is. You see, that's really what you're looking for. If it looks like oil, so if you and you smell it, smells like ATF. It mustn't smell burnt. Okay, if it smells burnt, it says it talks to the clutches being burnt in the gearbox, and that's an issue. So you know, a bad gearbox, it's going to be like that, look like engine oil inside there. And if that's the issue, you might be in for quite a big bill in a gearbox replacement. They are available, used resale gearboxes with guarantees. They go for around 7,000-8,000 rand. But once you get a mechanic to put it in, you're in for 10,000-15,000 rand there. So be careful. That's another thing I check. And that's really it. It's also a good idea to open up the radiator. Make sure you do it when it's cold. Obviously, just open it up and check that water. Check the water level firstly. That's correct where it is here, about a centimeter below that ridge. And just make sure that it's not milky or oily. Obviously, you don't want that, because that says that there's oil inside there. And if there's oil in the radiator, that means the cylinder head's most likely gone. So that's going to be a problem. So that's another thing to check there. Check the function of the lights. Check the function of the fan. Quite a common issue that the fan doesn't work on 123 on all the speeds, the interior blower, I mean. So just go through all the speeds there and make sure that that's all working. Make sure that the heater's connected. Okay, and the heater you can check is connected over here. This is the heater valve. Just make sure these cables are on here. That means the heater's connected. If the heater's connected, the functioning of the heater should be all right. If it's disconnected, it means it's probably leaking in the heater box, which is a dash out job. We do have heater boxes in stock. I'll show you what they look like. It's a big thing. Not an easy thing to put in. They're not particularly expensive, but yeah, I'll show you here. Here we go. There's a W123 heater box. Huge big thing. Okay, so it's dash out, that in. So yeah, just make sure the heater's connected and you're good there. Check it's a good idea as well to just check the master cylinder. This one, it's already out over here, but just open it up on the brakes. Go back to one of these cars here. Look at bellows. Just check the level. Okay, it should be up to there. See, yours a little bit low, maybe just chop that up a bit.
Yeah.
But make sure that's not too dark, and that's all good there as well. That's the other thing. Just feel the brakes. W123s have great brakes. If it feels spongy or if it feels soft, there's some issue there. Not particularly expensive, anything in it. Everything is available, but just make sure that's all right. Mechanically, gearbox, if it's manual, the gear shift should be very slick. They literally click into place. If you look at any of the W123 videos I've done on YouTube, or Bella and I have done on it, you'll find that the gear shift is very, very nice. It's very, very precise. So as soon as that's sloppy or it's grating or something, there's an issue there. What a lot of mechanics do, they don't realize that Mercedes specify that the manuals need to have automatic transmission fluid in their gearboxes. So a lot of mechanics do put in normal gear oil, 75, 90 or something like that, and that destroys the synchros in it. And so don't, if it's not you, if it's grating, it's a good chance got the incorrect oil in. Not an end of the world. Manual gearboxes not too expensive. You're looking about 3,500 rand for 4-speed, and very often they can be saved if you put the ATF back in. So yeah, just be aware of that. The autos, you're looking at a nice clean shift. There mustn't be any slipping. It should engage. A nice test there is if you get into it, move it from neutral to drive, and count. For me, 2.5 seconds is when it should engage. So you get in, obviously with it running. Neutral, drive, you should feel it engage within a couple of seconds. If it doesn't, issues. Okay, potential issues. Driving as well, make sure that the shifts are, vary. So if your foot's a little bit harder on the accelerator, the shifting point is a little bit higher up in the rev range. If you're on a very light throttle, it'll short shift quite quickly. Make sure it does do that. That's mostly an adjustment thing. There's a Bowden cable that determines that, so it is adjustable, but just ensure that that's right. That's the one thing. The next thing is make sure that it doesn't slip. So if you're accelerating hard, so say you're going along in third gear and you're accelerating hard and you want it to change, it must be it must be quite not a firm jerking shift, but it certainly mustn't be a slurring shift, if you know what I mean. There must be no slipping there, so there must be, boom, changes. That's the other thing with the gearbox. So nice quick shift, a shift that's determined by your the pressure on your accelerator pedal. So the harder you push on the accelerator pedal, the higher the revs. Very low on your accelerator pedal, it's going to be a very short shift, you know, if you're just touching it. That's the one thing with the gearbox that I would certainly check. And let me think if there's anything else, and I'll add it on. The other thing that Billy actually pointed out to me was the engine fan. So these work, certainly the M102s and the 280Es as well, work with the electromagnetic engine fan. And very often that doesn't engage. So a very nice, easy test. So if you have a look here, with the engine off and it cold, it spins like that, perfectly normal. With it on, okay, warm up the engine, a good test, and this is how you would test it. You just drive the car, warm it up to temperature, turn off the engine, obviously, you don't want to chop off your fingers, put the ignition back on without starting the engine. So the ignition's on and it's warm, that should be locked in place. So that should be engaged. If that still freewheels like that when it's warm, you've got an issue with that. And what's going to happen is as soon as you're in a situation where you're not driving, you're sitting at a traffic light or something like that, there's going to be no airflow through and you're going to see the temperature start going up. That's the most likely issue. A lot of guys also weld it. Just check that there isn't a weld spot here. That's a very common thing as well. I've done it myself for one of my cars and I drove it like that for years, and not necessarily a negative thing, but it's not what it should be. So there you get it. Price determines it. On a 20 or 30,000 rand car, it's fine. It's a solution. The car's never going to overheat. It's going to make a little bit more noise because of the fan running all the time, as a wasp flies up to belly here. But it's certainly not going to overheat. But on a more expensive car, that shouldn't be there. This electromagnetic fan should be kicking in. And yeah, quite important that that does. And yeah, so you know, use common sense. It needs to start well when it's cold. It needs to start well when it's warm. Temperature needs to be good. There needs to be no funny noises. That ticking, you know what it is. It's going to be that camshaft. Gearbox nice and smooth. Check the oils in it. And another thing to do is just put your head underneath, have a look at the bottom, and check if there's any oil leaks. In the front, it's most likely on these just a sump. You know, some plug not tightened, or these breathers. As you can see, it's quite an intricate web of little rubber breather pipes here, and if any one of them is a little bit perished, it's going to leak oil from the bit of blow-by, the natural blow-by that's in the engine. It's going to leak out there, and it's going to run down eventually. Check underneath the gearbox, particularly if it's automatic. You don't want to leak there. What happens is it's got the sump on the gearbox. When you change the filter on the gearbox, should be done every 40 or 50,000 Ks, and you change the fluid. A lot of people over tighten those little bolts that hold the sump on. It's got a ridiculously low amount of torque there to me. I think it's 7 or 8 Newton meters, but a little bit more than hand tight. So a lot of people over tighten that. It warps, or it pushes out the gasket, or it warps the actual sump on the gearbox and will cause it to leak. So check for gearbox leaks. Also, not a difficult thing to resolve, but it's something that does affect the price. And yeah, that's really the thing. And so look underneath for leaks. Windscreens are still freely available. We didn't cover those. I had one recently fitted in my 123, 3,000 rounds, somewhere around there. So they are freely available, still new. And yeah, this over here is obviously the fan for the aircon. So if you're checking on the aircon, that would come on, but you know, the biggest test of the aircon is put it on. If it gets cold, you're good. Anyway, thanks for watching, and please feel free, if you see a 123 that you're interested in buying, I really don't mind you contacting me. Send me a WhatsApp with a link to the ad and ask me if anything stands out to me. Obviously I'm not there, I'm not looking at the car, but I can certainly look at it and say, okay, this doesn't look quite right, or that's 100%, or at that price this should be there. So please feel free. I'll happily do it. I'll leave my contact number in the description if you haven't got it, or just Google the old Merca and send me a WhatsApp, and I'll respond as soon as I get a gap. Might not be immediately. Sometimes I get messages at 1 in the morning. I probably won't respond then. Send a WhatsApp, and I'll certainly have a look for you and give you a bit of advice as well. But they're, just getting back to them, they're great cars. A lot of the parts are still available new. They're very robust. You can use them on a daily basis. Bella has, I've had for years. If you look through the videos, I often speak about my experience with 123s. There's so many videos that we've done on the channel. Of all, I think we've covered, Bella, have we cored all of them?
I don't think we've done a 250 or
The
230.
Yeah, we haven't. We haven't done the two earlier pre-facelift engines.
Yeah.
So the old 250 M123 and the M115 we haven't done. But we've certainly done all the other ones. So browse the channel. There's a lot of, you can get an idea of each one, how they drive. I chat about them. Bella chats about them as well. And please feel free to contact me. As you can see, we do a lot of spares here as well. And if I feel that it's something that needs to be bought new, I don't sell it. So a lot of people ask me for parts that I feel shouldn't be sold second hand. I don't sell them. We send them to scrap metal. So yeah, feel free to contact me. I'll certainly help where I can. And thanks for watching. If you enjoy these sort of videos, please like and subscribe to the channel. And as I say, if you've got any questions, ask. I'll see you in the comments.